You're listening to the X Zone Radio Show, live and around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network and X Zone Broadcast Network. Visit our website at www.xzoneradiotv.com.
If I had $1 million.
The X Zone radio and TV show is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone radio and TV show or in any manner endorsed by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, Talkstar Radio Network, its affiliated stations, or employees.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Back to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the Talkstar Radio Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, and Star Cable, and our growing family of broadcast affiliates right across Canada, the United States, Central America, the Caribbean, South America, the Pacific Rim, Australia, Asia, India, Africa, and Europe. If you'd like to give us a call toll-free worldwide, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com, and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Exonation, my guest this hour is Major Montgomery Granger. He is a 3-time mobilized U.S. Army Reserve officer who was called into his reserve center in Uniondale in Long Island, New York on 9/11 in response to the attacks on the World Trade Center's Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and Flight 93, which crashed at Shanksville, Pennsylvania. He answered his country's call to duty next in January of 2002 for a mission to help run the military detention facility at the U.S. Naval Station at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. He was called up again just 6 months after returning from active duty at Gitmo, but this time remained stateside at the U.S. Army Reserve Training Center at Fort Dix, New Jersey. After nearly 6 months at Fort Dix, Major Granger returned to civilian life for about a year when he was involuntarily transferred to another Reserve Army unit that was deploying to Iraq in the fall of 2004. Joining me now is Major Montgomery Granger. And Major, welcome to the X Zone.
Thanks very much, Rob. Appreciate it. It's an honor to be with you today.
As I told you, sir, off air, my many thanks, and I'm most certain that the thanks and the admiration of the entire X Zone Nation go to you and all the brothers and sisters that serve around this world, keeping democracy and freedom that we take at times for granted. So, sir, to you and your brothers and sisters, thank you very much for what you do and what you guys keep doing for us, and we just can't thank you enough. You and I have to take a commercial break, sir, and I'm sorry for taking such a long intro, but I thought it necessary that the X Zone Nation know exactly who you are. 3 times, you know, 9/11, Gitmo, and then stateside, and you were telling me before we went to air that, if it wasn't for your wife and 5 children, you'd be going back over to the other side.
In a heartbeat. It was the most professionally rewarding experience of my life. It was just, you train for all this. I joined in 1986, and you train and you train and you train, and finally something comes along and you're able to do your job with fantastic professionals everywhere you turn, and it was extremely rewarding.
Major, please stand by. You and I have to take our first commercial break, sir. X Zone Nation, Major Montgomery Granger is our special guest. Here's the website, strategicpublishinggroup.com/title/Saving Grace at Guantanamo Bay .html. That'll give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about when we come back from this 2-minute commercial break right here in the X Zone from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And welcome back, everyone. Major Montgomery Granger is our special guest. His website, strategicpublishinggroup.com/title/Saving Grace at Guantanamo Bay .html. Tell me, Major, what was it like when you were called the first time and you ended up working on the horrific day in history of September 11, 2001?
Well, I think most of us were in shock in the beginning. A lot of folks heard that there had been a plane hitting one of the Twin Towers, and maybe assumed, like I did, that maybe someone was flying a small plane and had a heart attack. And when the second plane hit, I think a lot of us suspected something. I got a call around 10 a.m. to come into the Reserve Center. I packed a duffel bag, told my boss that I was going, which wasn't a problem, and headed into the Reserve Center in Uniondale, which is in Nassau County, Long Island, New York. There, I saw many of my colleagues coming in, some of whom had been in the towers, some of whom had witnessed what had happened and were in shock. We maintained an emergency operations center there, which I assisted in for 7 days and was released. Our main job in a crisis such as this is to protect Fort Todd, New York, which back then was the headquarters for the Regional Readiness Command for all reserve forces in the Northeast. So since that wasn't a target, it was not a primary mission.
Your second posting was at Gitmo. What was that like, sir?
Again, it's sort of a shock. You don't expect to do these things, and when you do them, it takes a while for it to sink in. I think getting there and right away having to assist with in-processing detainees was a wake-up call. because you could see in their eyes that some of these guys were hardcore soldiers of fortune, mercenaries, Taliban, and Al-Qaeda. And some of them had missing limbs. We heard right away that one of the detainees, who's since been released, Australian David Hicks, had promised to kill an American before he left the island, and indeed attempted to do that at every chance. But you don't hear much of that in the papers. You don't hear about the reverse abuse.
Tell me, what was there torture or abuse at Gitmo?
Well, it kind of went both ways, but from guards to detainees, it was rare and mild compared to what the detainees would do toward the guards. If a guard were to perpetrate abuse, which did happen, or even give the impression of it, he or she was reassigned. Some MPs were so harassed, however, by detainees that they requested transfer from working directly with them. MPs were told that if they harbored strong negative feelings towards detainees, they were to relieve themselves. The abuse towards detainees were things such as disturbing the detainees when they were sleeping, taunting, calling them names, insulting them, cursing at them. These things did happen, but were rare. The detainees would also pick on the guards. They perceived as weak, especially the females. They would threaten the guards and their families. They would hit them, spit on them, throw urine and feces on them, taunt them, and if you would take every opportunity, like Mr. Hicks, to physically fight with the guards. They test the limits of patience and professionalism in the guards. And almost always the guards kept their cool. To get into a fight with the guard, though, was fairly easy. He just waited until the guard entered the cell, which way they would do to put the shackles and chains on to move them either to interrogations or to the showers. The detainee was told to assume the position, which was kneeling with hands behind their back and their back to the gate to their cell. The guard would approach cautiously, but if the detainee was a fighter, he'd simply turn around and start throwing punches and kicking. They usually only got away with this once. Subsequent times, 2 guards or more would put the shackles on. If the detainee refused to assume the position, he was what we call IRFed. It's an acronym, IRF. It stands for Internal Reaction Force. You get 5 of the biggest, meanest, toughest guards in the battalion. You put them all in American baseball catcher's gear with chest and leg and head protection, riot sticks. If there was a fighter or a detainee who refused to assume the position, they got IRFed. Sometimes there were bruises, sometimes broken bones, but the same detainee rarely got IRFed more than once. But there are a few who considered it a sport. Remember, especially in the beginning, you had about 250 guys from over 20 different countries, which means some were Al-Qaeda, some were Taliban, and some were mercenaries and soldiers of fortune, guys not accustomed to being caged up or told what to do. They lived to fight and kill. As for torture, I never saw even the hint of it, nor did I ever hear about anything close to it. The ICRC, or the International Committee of the Red Cross, were all over the mission. They had a trailer just outside the front gates of Camp X-Ray. We met with them formally once per week, and they were constantly roaming around inside and outside the compound and medical facility. It was a very transparent mission. We had nothing to hide and nothing to be ashamed of, and they had very good access to detainees. In fact, told me on several occasions that we, the Americans, were hands down the best at detention operations in the world. They said no one even comes close to the job that we did.
Tell me, sir, is Gitmo a deterrent to terrorism, or does it help Al-Qaeda recruit terrorists?
I think Gitmo is both. As news of Gitmo spread, I'm sure it was not something that was used to recruit terrorists. The consensus among the first detainees was that they were going to be tortured and then killed. Why? Because that's exactly what most of the detainees would do to us if we were the captives and they were the jailers. Once the releases began, those released could spin their false tales of torture and abuse that took on a life of its own. There were unsubstantiated reports and stories printed in magazines and papers that told lies perpetrated by released detainees. One I remember was the false report that guards had flushed a Quran down a detainee toilet, the new toilets in the cells at Camp Delta. And I knew from being there that the toilet piping was so small that the large Qurans we would give them a standard issue could in no way be flushed, stuffed down the toilet, and indeed, after a while, the story was retracted. Also, while I was there, more often than not, we'd be eating chow in a dining facility at Gitmo, watching CNN crawl at the bottom of the TV screen, and it would say something about the operation was just not true, such as false reports of riots in the compound. I shared living space with the camp commandant, Lieutenant Colonel Klein, who was also my unit commander. If there was a riot, he'd be notified immediately, and we'd go down and deal with it. There were times when a riot was reported, or hunger strike, or what have you. No such things were going on at all. They were simply fabricated so that the press would have something to say that day. I would never have believed it had I not been there. We're pretty much trained to believe everything we read or see in print or on TV. They're saying it or showing it, so it must be true. Now that more and more detainees have been released, those detainees who are back trying to kill Americans on a daily basis have lots of influence with other terrorists or potential terrorists, and they can say anything they want to about Gitmo. This won't change if we move the operation. In fact, the rumors and lies will be used to recruit no matter where the facility might be.
Tell me, Major, why do we need Gitmo?
Well, we need it because it's still the best, safest place to keep those who do not follow the Geneva Conventions. A big risk to keeping detainees, such as those now at Gitmo, is fratricide. Bad guys wanting to kill other bad guys to shut them up. This creates a great risk if you put the facility in the U.S. We can positively control who comes and goes at Gitmo. For any U.S. military operation, the number one most important element is security. If your operation is not secure, you have less of a chance to complete your mission successfully. Gitmo gives us security, so it's the best place to operate the detention facility we need.
I've seen pictures on television of Gitmo, and I've heard the same press stories that you were talking about from the media, and it's pretty sad when the media has to sensationalize and create their own news just to maintain ratings.
Yes, it is, and I had some personal interactions with some of the CNN reporters there. I talk about it in my book a little bit, and try to engage them in conversation, and they kind of admit, it's about the soundbite, it's about getting ratings, it's about being sent down there to get a certain story, and by gosh, they're going to get it, even if they have to make it up.
Major, you and I have to take our commercial break with the news at the bottom of the hour. Please stand by, sir. Exo Nation, Major Montgomery J. Granger is our special guest this hour. Now, he's the author of Saving Grace at Guantanamo Bay, and here's the website again, www.strategicpublishinggroup.com/title/Saving Grace at Guantanamo Bay.html. That's www.strategicpublishinggroup.com/title/Saving Grace at Guantanamo Bay.html. Major Granger and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, and Star Cable. Don't go away.
Why do we lose so many tears? Oh, I saw you go again when the leading man appears.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Hi, this is Ken Elliott. When I'm floating around the universe, I always try to tune in to Rob McConnell.
Hi ho there, Trinity Frog on Sesame Street. When I want to find out what's going on with UFOs or ghosts, I listen to the X Zone with Rob McConnell.
This is Les Corrigan from Target Internet Development. You're listening to Rob McConnell on the X Zone Radio Show.
This is John Hogue, Prophecy Scholar, and you're listening to Rob McConnell in the X Zone.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Mustang Sally, guess you better slow that Mustang down. Mustang Sally now, baby, guess you better slow that Mustang down. You've been running all over town. Oh, I guess you gotta put your flat feet on the ground.
Exo Nation, welcome back, everyone. This is the Exxon coming from the studios of the Relmar McConnell Media Company in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the Talkstar Radio Network, Exxon Broadcast Network, and Star Cable. 1-800-610-7035 is toll-free worldwide. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, xzoneradiotv@hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour, Exxon Nation, is Major Montgomery Granger, and we're talking about the Major's book, Saving Grace at Guantanamo Bay. Here's the website once again, www.strategicpublishinggroup.com/title/Saving Grace at Guantanamo Bay.html. Major, is there really a global war on terror or just two conflicts in the Middle East?
Well, that's actually one of my favorite things to talk about. There are U.S. troops in over 70 countries worldwide. This is according to Soldiers Magazine, the official publication of the U.S. Army. We still have troops and bases in countries we defeated in World War II and in Korea. And these are the places we know about. As we talked about before the show, the tip of the spear in this global war on terror is probably our clandestine operations, our electronic warfare, financial warfare, the secret squirrel stuff, not the hot operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, operations Iraqi freedom and enduring freedom, respectively. In fact, we have hot ongoing operations there. And we have been in a global war on terror, or as we say in the military, a GWOT, since November 21st, 1979. And this is going to take us back in history a little bit. November 21st, 1979. This is the date that the first casualty in the global war on terror, Marine Corporal Stephen Crowley, of Port Jefferson Station, which is where I live, New York, where my wife grew up, and she and I have owned a home since '91. Corporal Crowley was murdered in cold blood after busloads of students, actually male Muslim extremists, were bussed to the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad, Pakistan, after false news reports were made regarding U.S. troops taking hold of the mosque at Mecca in Saudi Arabia. In fact, militant Saudis had taken control of Mecca, not American troops. But the truth got out too late. Crowley was posted on the roof of the embassy and was shot in the skull. He was carried to what they called a safe room on the second floor of the embassy, where everyone else in the compound had gathered. He was given medical oxygen and first aid. The siege by the male Muslim extremists, who were later to be funded by Osama bin Laden, continued. As they entered the first floor, they set a bonfire under the second floor safe room, trying to cook alive about 100 or so embassy personnel.
Oh, God.
Including the mortally wounded Corporal Crowley. Mercifully, and finally, the Pakistani police and Army, who had been absent for several hours while the siege took place, finally arrived on the scene and allowed the quote-unquote students to get back on their buses and leave. But it was too late for Corporal Crowley, who expired as the oxygen ran out prior to the rescue. We need to wake up and stop the denial about the global war on terror. They're not wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. These are operations in the global war on terror. And I think you hear a lot of denial from the administration, U.S. administration. You don't hear this term spoken aloud. You hear about a war in Afghanistan and a war in Iraq. And I think it's just misleading, considering, as I said at the beginning of the question, troops in over 70 countries worldwide. That, to me, is a global war.
Speaking about Afghanistan and Iraq, when will the U.S. get out of Afghanistan and Iraq, sir?
Well, I think probably never. I mentioned before about having troops in countries that we defeated in World War II. We're obviously not occupiers of those countries. We're friends. We have a habit of making very good friends around the world and keeping them. We're loyal, generous, and powerful. My guess is that we'll retain an advisory presence in Iraq and Afghanistan for generations. In fact, I'd love to be able to go back to Iraq with my family as tourists. The people of Iraq are friendly. They're outgoing, gregarious, and peaceful. It is Al-Qaeda, mostly non-Iraqis, and the former Ba'athist and Republican Guards who have proven themselves to be the bloodlusting terrorists and insurgents. In time, I think they'll either assimilate or be killed. The question is, will we end up in Iran as well? I believe it's almost inevitable the way things are going, and then maybe even Pakistan. But I think we're in these countries, at least as an advisory capacity, for a very long time.
Major, what was it like for a reservist before, during, and after a deployment?
It was very, very difficult. Very difficult. We do have an all-volunteer military, and reasonable people have to know what business the military is in. So it shouldn't be a surprise that when a reservist is activated for deployment, that they end up in dirty, dangerous places. It doesn't mean it's easy or what we might expect it to be. It is harder on reservists and their families, I believe, and their civilian employers, mostly because there's usually little official support for reservists who don't live on or often anywhere near military bases that have all the services and support that our active duty counterparts enjoy. Many reservists make more money in their civilian jobs than they do in their military jobs, and there's no law that says that those funds have to be made up. This creates a hardship on the families when they're deployed. Communication can be difficult during the deployments. It has improved over time, but things change at home, with friends, with family, and definitely with employers. And I think the lack of communication or unreliable communication, especially for those on the front lines, can contribute to those problems. And then coming home means having to reintegrate with your family. The roles have changed with spouses, and children have different expectations with discipline and routines. And even though there are legal protections regarding reservists in their civilian jobs, there are some employers who test the system. And reservists often find themselves at a disadvantage for promotions. Sometimes jobs are eliminated or employees laid off while the reservist is on deployment. And this can be devastating to reservists and their families. Some reservists end up joining the full-time regular Army as their only career option after losing jobs when they return home.
Tell me, are reservists treated differently than active duty military?
Yes, I think so, especially at first. When you get into a joint mission, like at Gitmo, and then my unit was so small, just 12 people. Wherever we went, we were going to get attached, and most likely that was going to be to an active duty unit. The active duty soldiers didn't really have a clue about reservists on 9/11/2001. But as the years went by, they learned that reservists are sometimes the better soldier because we are on average older, wiser, and more experienced, sometimes former active duty soldiers, and we have multiple skills to offer to the mission. So reservists who are MPs, which was my units, even though I was a medical service officer, reservists who are MPs are often veteran police officers or prison guards in their civilian work with real-life police experience, as opposed to only military training and limited experience for our active duty counterparts. The biggest difference in how we're treated, unfortunately, and this might come as a surprise to some, has to do with benefits. From medical, dental, and other care to pay and privileges is very different for us. The biggest of these is probably the retirement system. As an active duty soldier who puts in 20 good years, who may never have stepped foot in a war zone, draws retirement pay the day after he retires. A reservist, on the other hand, has to wait until they're 60 years old to draw pay. And it doesn't matter how many years they served after 20. And the reservist pay depends on a point system that reflects his actual duty, which is going to be less. Because unless you're serving on active duty orders, it's just 1 week in a month and 2 weeks each summer.
Right.
So we're not talking about a living wage after retirement, but we are talking about being paid for the time we put in. It's not much, but why do we have to wait 22 years for pay in the scenario that sees an 18-year-old go into either service and retire after 20 years? It's 22 years of no pension for the reservist. The technical reason is that there is a separate retirement fund for the active duty soldiers. And the reserves have to take the retirement funds of the same pot of money it has to use on beans, bullets, and equipment, etc. It's not fair, and it's just plain wrong. And that, to me, is the biggest difference currently.
Why did you join the military, sir?
Well, I borrowed my way through college. So when I got out and the loans started coming due, I saw a commercial on TV that mentioned loan repayment. That got my attention. I was a substitute teacher of health and physical education and a coach at the time, so I thought that becoming a combat medic would be a good choice. Prior to that commercial, I had never seriously considered joining the military. However, it became a labor of love. After the loans were paid off, I decided to stay in and became a medical service officer with the infantry, then as a field hospital company commander, then eventually as a field medical assistant for a military police enemy prisoner of war detachment. My service in that capacity has been, like I said before, the most professionally rewarding work of my career. And as I told you, if I were not a husband, a very lucky father of 5 beautiful children, I'd be going to Iraq soon with my former unit.
For listeners who may be wondering what they can do with their lives?
I think what is most impressive to me are those who joined the military after 9/11. I am completely blown away by the fact that we continue to meet our recruitment goals. And I would say if you've ever thought about serving your country, now is not a better time than now. They need you. They want you. Yes, there are great benefits to it. And yes, all the parents out there are probably cringing. No one wants to see their son or daughter go to war. No one wants to see them die for their country or be severely wounded or handicapped. It is a calling, however. And the people that come back from war or go over will all tell you the same thing. It is something that they're passionate about. And they feel it's the right thing to do.
All right, sir, stand by. You and I have to take our final break. X-Zone Nation. Major Montgomery Granger is our special guest. www.strategicpublishinggroup.com/title/Saving Grace at Guantanamo Bay.html. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we do our wrap-up for tonight, Tuesday, May the 11th in the year 2010. Don't go away. And welcome back, everyone. I'd like to take this opportunity of thanking all our guests tonight. In hour number 1, we talked with Maureen Webb about global security. Hour number 2, Lee Boylan and I talked about nuclear weapons. Hour number 3, Reta Akamatsutu. There we go, I said it. We were talking about ghosts, and my guest this hour is Major Montgomery Granger. He's the author, Exonation, of Saving Grace at Guantanamo Bay. The website is www.strategicpublishing.group.com/title/Saving Grace at Guantanamo Bay.html. Major, what would you like people to leave with after reading your book?
I think that I'd like them to understand that those who work there and in any military prison worldwide are dedicated, hardworking professional soldiers, and 99.9% of them are there to do their job and do it the best they can. And this particular kind of work, Rob, is very distasteful. And I don't want to hide that. I didn't hide it in the book. But it is something that we got through. You know, you get very angry being away from your family and friends and employer, and you just want to come home, and you look at these guys and you think, hey, you're why I'm here. But in the end, I think every American and person that lives in the free world can be proud of the job that we do each and every day. And that's what I like to end with.
Major, when do you think the mission at Gitmo will end?
I don't think it'll ever end. I hope it stays open indefinitely. We need a place like this that is secure to keep detainees, and there's no place on earth as secure as Naval Station at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And as I said before, it's completely transparent. The Red Cross is there all the time. The military has tremendous checks and balances in place. It's not a perfect operation, but again, it is not what is portrayed in the news media. It is a place we can all be proud of.
Major, I want to thank you so much for joining us. To you and all the other members, the brothers and sisters who have served, are serving, and will serve, thank you very much from a grateful nation.
Well, thank you very much. I'm extremely grateful to you, and I appreciate those well wishes very much.
Major, let our listeners know how they can get a copy of your book, please.
Yeah, they can go to the website. That's one way to do it. It's also available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and at your local bookstore. And if someone's not sure if this is their type of book, what I'd like to do is recommend have your local library get a copy.
Oh, there's a good idea. Major Granger, please take care of yourself, sir, and we look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Thank you very much. It would be my pleasure.
Good night, Major. Exonation Major Montgomery Granger has been our guest. He is the author of Saving Grace at Guantanamo Bay. Well, that's it for tonight, everyone. Thank you to my producers and all the staff here at the Exonation, both in radio, TV, and, of course, our crew over at the X-Chronicles newspaper. And to you, the Exonation, thank you for allowing us to be part of your day or night, no matter where you are on this great big planet of ours. So until tomorrow night, when once again we meet here in the X-Zone, always remember to keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.
You don't have to go home, but you can.